Hello and welcome to Senior Spot. My name is Jen Quinn and I'm the owner of Comfort Care Home Care, and I'm delighted to have today as a guest Paul Play, who is the manager at Eastern Bank right here in Westford at Cornerstone. And Paul is here to be able to share some safety tips, financial safety tips, to help keep our seniors here in the community doing well and making good choices about things that they need to protect their finances. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm delighted and really looking forward to hearing some of the tips that you're going to share, simply because unfortunately you hear about things in the news where people are taken advantage of, and people may not understand the things that they can do to protect themselves from these things happening. So I know at Eastern Bank you may run across these things, and so tell us a little bit about that.
We do run across quite a bit. We have a substantial number of elderly depositors who at one time or another are having maybe a little difficulty getting a grip on their account, who may not have computers, may not use computers, and so they're trying to balance a checkbook, which is actually can be a very difficult thing to do.
It is.
So we try to assist our customers with that and really watch their accounts very, very, very carefully, not only in the branch, but in the main part of Eastern Bank behind the scenes with debit cards and so forth. There's a lot of security and a lot of tracking of where the cards are being used. So if there's something unusual, it can get flagged.
Excellent. Well, and I know that not everybody even likes to use cards, so you might have big withdrawals, things like that.
We watch that as well.
Sure.
For instance, anything that's a little bit unusual. So if someone comes in and does a few $100s on a normal basis, we'll pretty much, okay, fine. Well, we'll always have a conversation, because we're always trying to but really watch out and find out what's going on with that person, and we're actually interested in their lives as well, because we have a really nice relationship with our customers. So
you do. I know that firsthand. Anytime that I've ever been into Eastern Bank, everyone is incredibly warm, and not just that, I've observed firsthand that the tellers and the people in the bank know the customers.
We do know the customers. We know a lot about the customers, obviously.
Sometimes that's good and bad.
It can be, but we do consider ourselves a line of defense for the customer, and that's that's very, very important to us. Is that the customer's security, the customer's money, hard-earned money, is safe and protected. So if we see some activity out of the unusual, for instance. We had someone come with a $6,000 withdrawal.
That's a sizable withdrawal.
And that person does not withdraw cash very often.
And you probably have to balance, certainly not being nosy.
No, there's some confidentiality,
right.
But kind of like your hairdresser, where you can tell us anything because we're your bank and you know us and we're close to you. So we had an incident where there was a lot of money, $6,000 in cash. And at that point, we'll usually try to engage and ask some questions to figure out what's going on and anything that we can do. For instance, how about a treasurer's check? Let's get a check.
A good point.
The
way in which they leave the bank with it.
You don't necessarily want to be driving around with that amount of cash. No. And the person was, no, it's all set. I'm okay. I just want to have cash. Well, it turns out that person, unfortunately, was a victim of a telephone scam. The grandson is in jail scam. I don't know if you've heard about it, but these predators target mostly elderly folks with a phone call with someone. And I'm not sure how they get a lot of their information, but they've got a fair amount of information.
It's interesting that you note the phone, too. And with our senior population, I know that I've received a lot of the emails that my friend is over in Europe and needs money to, but those are through emails. So this is an interesting way of doing it.
This is a phone call, and they'll say this: we have an urgent call for so-and-so, and your grandson, and it's always a grandson, is in jail. and he needs to talk to you. And they put someone else on, and at that point, the person's adrenaline is spiked.
Sure.
So they really think that they're talking to their grandson.
Right.
Even though the voice may not, I think the voice sounded like him.
Unless you have the grandparent that says, good, he probably did something wrong, let him sit there.
You're right. Then, we haven't come across that yet, but I'm sure it would happen.
I hope they get a few of those calls.
Yeah. So, said, oh, I'm in trouble, I'm in jail, it's really not my fault. I was with a friend and he had or she had something in the car and we got arrested and I need some money for bail. And you got to put it in a certain account, which is always another bank. It's never at the police station,
right,
at the
Western
courthouse,
Union.
or anything like that. It's always cash into an account.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's what happened. And I think it was 40 minutes after the deposit in cash was made, so it's readily available.
Right.
The account was closed.
Account's closed. So withdrawn,
Gone.
closed, gone. Okay.
The
so this
$6,000, it was a $6,000 loss.
These are well thought out scams.
There are a lot of them.
Okay.
Another one that's going around is the IRS phone call.
Yes. And I think a lot of, no matter what age you are, that's definitely been coming around.
Right.
And I know that, I believe the police department here in Westford, a lot of different police departments have been very proactive in getting the word out there to make sure that it's not a legit,
The IRS will never call you.
Right, of course
You will
not.
always be notified by mail.
Right.
They won't notify you by email either. It's going to be all strictly the U.S. mail.
Okay.
There were many, many scams out there with fake companies called phishing, where they're looking for your information, they're looking for bank information.
So, our seniors are targeted, unfortunately. And a lot of times these are the savings that they need to live out the rest of their life, which
Absolutely.
to me makes it even worse. It's not okay to scam anyone.
It's despicable.
It's despicable. That's a perfect word for it. What other types of, I guess you would call it, exploitation do you see them? That's a straightforward, just a theft of
Well,
cash.
unfortunately, there's family exploitation as well. There may be a member of the family that is noticing that a grandparent or an elderly aunt or uncle doesn't quite have the facilities they had years ago, and can be taken advantage that way. Maybe put on the account, added to the account as joint owner, and if you're on the account as joint owner, then that money is accessible to you. So there's that.
I know that in my company where, obviously there's transaction for our services and being paid for, that we're, very particular in finding out who, I would say, the quarterback is, who the person is that is financially, the guarantor of something, who can make the decisions, because sometimes people are making decisions that aren't in the best interest of somebody, and usually it comes down to it being financial.
Yeah, and we do, like I said, earlier, we pay attention to a lot of what's going on, the dynamic with that person. If that person is no longer able to do their checkbook, we've seen people's skills diminish over time to the point where, we would help, but then we would have to call.
Right.
We'd have to call a family member and say, you've got to get someone, you've got to get this person some help in assisting with their checkbook, or maybe a POA is where to go.
Right.
Way to go. With that.
I'm so pleased to hear that you have that level of oversight, because I don't think a lot of places maybe take it to that degree. And for you to be able to inform somebody when you have concerns before something happens is obviously can save a lot of issues.
It does, and it has. So we're actually very proud of the care that we take with our customers, and that's part of customer service.
Sure, but I think that's above and beyond. I really do, and I think that
maybe it is for the bigger banks, but with Eastern's a mutual bank, which means that we're owned by the depositors own the account. We don't have shareholders. We don't pay a dividend.
Okay.
So really, we're really customer friendly and customer centric.
Well, that's a good way to explain it, because if you didn't know it was that type of bank, you wouldn't understand why it was.
Right. I mean, we are a big bank in the sense
Sure.
that we have 100 branches now, but pretty much you're going to get the same level of caring in every branch. And that's one reason I really enjoy working for Eastern Bank, because of they're very focused on helping people.
So
And not many people think of a bank as helping.
No.
And I come from a human service and nonprofit background, so it was a very good match for me.
yes, it is, because you're using those skills in your everyday interactions
do.
with people.
We do.
So, you know, when someone is taken advantage of, let's just say that's what it is. If you're exploited, you're taken advantage of. You know, sometimes elders, anybody, but sometimes elders may not be willing to share about that and may keep it to themselves, which also, you know, then there's a problem with being able to get any sort of repayment or retribution or something. So what are some of the reasons why somebody might not come forward?
Oh, I think first of all, they're embarrassed.
Okay.
You know, they really are embarrassed and kind of mad they've been tricked. But it is important that they come forward right away as soon as they know something or even suspect something, because time is very, very critical.
Yes.
Like you're saying, that other event where a person lost the $6,000, had she taken it out in a treasurer's check, we could have stopped the check.
Okay.
We could have stopped it.
Right.
And we can't do that with cash. But we maybe could have spoken with the other bank. We maybe done something if they, you know, but they close the account so fast that it's,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's
they
very
have it
difficult.
down pat. They knew
Yeah.
exactly what they were going to be doing.
Yeah.
So tell us about, now this was something that obviously couldn't be resolved, but you know,
No,
you did the right
unfortunately.
things. You were able to ask the questions. You were really trying to understand what it was about. A great learning experience to pass and share along with other folks. Tell me about some other issues that have come across the table.
Wires, for instance.
Okay.
Sending wires is unusual activity. It's really about the unusual and about something that's off out of the mainstream of that person's life and activity.
Okay.
So there are many, many different types of scams where someone, if you just, you know, if you send us a little bit of money, we'll be able to get you that lottery ticket that you bought and won a great deal of money with, but we need a little bit to pay for the operating expenses or whatever. And so any kind of activity like that, whether it's a wire or any kind of something that is out of the norm, the normal range of operation, we really pay attention to and question.
So what would be some other red flags? Like obviously a large cash withdrawal is clearly a red flag for anybody of any age.
Right.
Wiring, are there any other red flags?
Yeah, well, some are you coming into the bank with someone that we've never seen you with before who isn't necessarily related to you.
Okay.
So we kind of wonder about, you know, we do question those types of things. Someone who, and they maybe want to add that person to their account, and now because they're going to be taking care of them. It's something that, you know, we want to ask more questions about.
Right, and unless it's a person that is a power of attorney, somebody that is able to make decisions with somebody, it really shouldn't happen.
Right, and someone that just can't say, "Oh, I have power of attorney." You know, there are documents that you have to do, and if you have a power of attorney, and if that document is more than 6 months old, then we have to do an affidavit on that saying that nothing's changed. And one of the things about the POA accounts is that the POA, power of attorney person, cannot fund themselves. They cannot write a check to themselves.
Okay.
So if they're the caregiver too, and they think they're going to pay themselves, they can't do it out of the POA account.
Okay.
It has to go through another party.
Go through another party,
Yeah.
just to make sure that there's not any crossing of the lines. and things
Exactly.
like that.
POAs cannot fund themselves.
Well, I know in the business that I'm in with home care, it's something that we don't want our caregivers, our team members, to be helping anybody with anything financial. That's something that rests in the hands of the professionals.
Yep.
And making the determination that it is going to be somebody that does have the proper, permission to be able to do it.
Right, and so we'll, if we suspect something, we try to have a conversation with the family, perhaps, depending on how well we know them, and which party of the family it might be, whether it's the husband, the wife,
Sure.
or child. Sometimes we'll get a phone call for someone who's, has a joint account with maybe 2 or 3 other people, other family members, and they'll come to the bank and find that they'll do a transaction and then look at the receipt with the balance on it and find that there's not quite what they thought there was in the account. That's happened a few times, unfortunately.
So, any stories where you've had something happen, you've been able to intervene, and then what happens after that? What's your responsibility as a bank to be able to then help the customer
The customer,
pursue it?
for instance, who maybe has lost a great deal of money through some theft, really, from another family member. It's really up to them as to whether they want to press charges or bring charges, but we'll recommend it sometimes.
Sure.
There are times where we'll tell someone that they'll have to resolve that with the company. If there's a big expense, we necessarily can't do that. We'll point them in the direction of the police as well. We'll call in the police to have them talk about it. So there's any number of, gosh, and you're dealing with people's money. There's in family.
A lot of dynamics going on.
You never know. Yeah.
Right. You never know, and obviously there's a certain level of confidentiality too, and privacy and respect that you're balancing a lot of things.
Right. I mean, there are certain things that, because especially if it's a joint account, that we can't do unless everyone signs off on.
Okay.
We can give you your balance, we can show you the transactions, but can't necessarily do some things that you might want to do investment-wise without permission of everyone on the account.
Okay. So when a senior is walking into Eastern Bank, let's say a new customer, okay, and what are the types of things that you think would be most beneficial for seniors in the community, besides obviously the exceptional oversight in making sure and knowing the person and knowing what their typical habits are? For a new person walking in, what would be some of the benefits? Well,
we do have an account that's called 1865, and there are benefits to having that type of account where it's, like for the first time check holder and someone who is 65 or older. For instance, if you overdraft a check, the charges are much less, like a $5 charge versus a $35 charge for that. We would also.
So it's less because you're more forgiving about.
Yeah, we're a little more forgiving about that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
The other types of benefits, we'll sit down. Part of what we do when we open an account is get to know our customer. So we'll ask a lot of questions and really try to get them into the right stuff. We do talk about debit cards. We do talk about online banking. I think online banking is really important. Again, some of our customers are elderly, a great deal are, and who don't have experience with computers. It's kind of unfortunate that's the case, but because that's a great way to keep track of your account. Check it every day, every other day, and find a charge on it. If there are charges, we explain that we have a process of reporting fraud on a debit, for instance, on a debit card. The process is to come to us, tell us where you found it, when you found it. We'll look it up, we'll see it, we'll report it. We give a provisional return of the money. We have 10 days to give you a provisional return of the money. Then another 30 days after that to investigate the case and make a final determination as to whether it's fraud or something that you actually did do. And many people do
and sometimes you just,
very legitimate things they don't realize.
Forget.
Yep.
You say, oh, geez, I didn't realize that this charge, sometimes a company is owned by another company, so the charge that appears is not necessarily
under a different name.
Right.
Yep, it'll be under a different name. And they forget which checks they written and that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
But there are some solutions to that, and that's one of them is when you use a debit card is that we'll give you a provisional. If it's a dispute with the company, unfortunately, that's something that you have to handle yourself.
Sure. Oh, yes. I mean, and I would say, I imagine it's the same for all
Yeah.
banks and debit cards.
Yeah.
I know that the experience of walking into a bank, I think that, for many folks that are maybe 65, 70 and above, it's something that you always did,
Yeah.
and I think what's nice about Eastern Bank is the fact that you very much feel that that's welcome. And as convenient as online banking is and getting everything done and being able to check, it's that walking in, having somebody know you, knowing that you can go to somebody, because I know
Yep.
that you've told me stories
Yep.
in the past just about customers coming to you for suggestions and for help of a different sort even than banking. And I think that small town feel is exactly what people are looking for and that you deliver.
Yeah.
And, I know that you're going to be going through some changes. And you're at
We are.
Cornerstone. That's
Yep.
where you're located.
We're at Cornerstone. Right now, we own the facility. We own the building. It's 4,000 square feet.
It's beautiful.
And when you have 4 people in the branch, you don't need 4,000 square
Really?
feet. Yeah, not really. I mean, it's been nice because we've used it for some other purposes. We've had art show, art exhibits from the Westford Academy and so forth. And so we kind of like the room in a sense, but ultimately we don't need as much. So the building is actually for sale. We are going to, whoever we sell it to, we are going to lease back what we need.
Okay, so you're staying there. 'Cause
We
that's what
are
everybody
going
wants
to
for.
stay.
Good.
We will be under construction for a period of time. We don't know when. I've been told it'll be sometime in 2016.
Okay,
And it's going to look very, very different.
different.
One of the differences is going to be, instead of the drive-up window that we have today, it's going to be what's called an ITM, Intelligent Teller Machine. And you'll drive up and there'll be a video, it'll be basically your standard ATM, but it'll have a large video screen. And on that screen and camera, which is built into the screen, they'll see you, there'll be a teller in Lynn, Massachusetts, which is where our headquarters is, and they'll do your transaction.
Interesting.
And if there's paper that needs to be passed and forth, they'll be able to generate that and send it out. It's going to be very different. I think a lot of people end up coming inside, which will be great for us too. But
Yeah, I think you
yeah.
get a lot of, I see foot traffic going in and out of there often.
Yeah.
But, that'll be a fun thing to check out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But we're really, we really like the interaction. We like knowing our customers, and that one, we'll be under construction, but we'll still be open.
Great.
Yeah,
Good.
sometime this year.
So different setup, but
A little
same
different.
great
Yep.
service.
It won't be. It'll be more like a pod. It'll be more like a little table that you'll sit down with someone. It won't be as quite as. I don't want to say stodgy because it's not really. We took down all the glass and so forth and tried to make the physical space more relatable and closer to our customers, so we weren't bending down and talking through a hole
Yeah.
in the glass. That sort of image of a bank is one that we wanted, me in particular, wanted to get away from, and wanted to have a better relationship with our customers because we think it benefits them a great deal.
So you already have it in terms of knowing your customers.
Yep.
Now you're going to have a space where it really speaks to being able to
Right.
deliver that physical.
Yep, and if it's something
space.
that's confidential and private, we will have rooms and we'll be able to go to that as well. And we do that a lot now. We do have a lot of people come in and they've lost track of their checking and they've found something on their account that they don't understand. It's something they may have forgotten. There was a charge that they signed up for something free and didn't realize that. And this is something they have to be careful about, that really nothing is free.
Okay.
And that if you get something free, it's probably free for the first month.
Okay.
And then if they ever do require you to put in your credit card information or debit card information, they plan to use it.
That's important to know.
It's important to know. We have many, many cases where someone come in and said, gee, I was just doing something and I got a free month or free whatever, and all I had to do is just give them my credit card for identification. Well, they then started a repetitive charge of whatever, $14.99. I've seen it as high as $70 or $80 a month.
Right. So in terms of different tips, you've given us some great things to be aware of, different red flags, different ways to be able to, that Eastern Bank certainly helps to not manage, but really to have a good eye on things,
Right.
so that you're making sure that people are not being taken advantage of. Is there anything that you could maybe speak to that would help, maybe some general questions that somebody could ask, you know, someone that might be calling them to, you know, to ask for money? What would be some things you might suggest?
Well, one thing you might want to ask them is to get their number so you can call them back. I'm kind of busy right now and I can't really do this. I can't really talk to you. Well, why don't you give me your number and I'll call you when I have time.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing. And another thing is I never get out information over the phone.
Good.
Just don't do it. It really never ends well.
Yeah, those are two great tips, especially, I mean, the first one, asking to call back, because a lot of times people don't want to be rude, you know, and I would say that, you know, a lot of people in the area, they've been brought up to have manners and they're not rude to people on the phone. And when something sounds also too good to be true, it usually is.
There's, you know, there are a lot of predators out there, you know, who use the internet and use the phone, and unfortunately prey on seniors because they're generally trusting, caring, want to help individuals.
Well, and it's nice to hear the phone ring, you know, and
to have a pleasant voice on the other end.
And of course,
they're not being threatened.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's somebody appealing to their good nature.
Absolutely.
And so it's easy to fall into that. But
yeah, just don't rush into anything. You know, you might, you know, come down and we can check it out for you as well.
I was just going to say
we're
that.
actually very willing to do that. And you know, is this a legitimate thing? Have you ever heard about this before?
Sure.
I got this letter in the mail, or I got this email. Bring it in to us. We'll help you with that.
Yeah,
We do
or
that a
bring
lot.
it into the police station. Bring it to a neighbor. Bounce these things off of people before you jump in.
You know, a couple of years ago, one of the scams going around was phone calls that saying, "Oh, your account is locked, and for you to be able to use your debit card, we're going to need your account number and a little other information." And they were calling. These were mass calls. The best one that we remember is there was a patrolman out on the street doing there was a construction duty, and he came into the bank saying, "Hey, I just got a call saying my account's locked. I don't even have an account with you guys."
Right.
Yeah. So we were able then to report that to our security. We have a great security team, and they'll check they'll find all these things and they'll report it, and it goes into a database as well.
Good.
So behind us, we have lots and lots of security behind us. We have, like I said, a great security team.
Good.
We just got a memo today about the pocketbook theft. There's been a rash of pocketbook thefts in southeastern and central, towards central Massachusetts, and they're looking for checkbooks and IDs. And the other thing that we do is we are very, very careful with our checks to make sure that they're legitimate, that the signatures are good.
Good, because people don't check that enough.
We check. There's a number of things on a check that we look for. We scrutinize very well. And if there's any question, we many times will pick up the phone and say, "Hey, did you write this check?"
Oh, that's great.
We'll do that.
Well, you know what? Thank you, Paul. Paul from Eastern Bank. Thank you so much for being our guest and giving us these tips for the seniors in our community.
Great.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.